My end goal would be one day to hopefully run a big time organization and grow it into something.
The more successful entrepreneurs and investors and just successful businessmen we talk to, they say there's the power in no. And it's so easy to get bogged down and hang around with people that just want to go do things, right?
It's powerful. I think that's why there's such a correlation between sports and business and sports and success, because it's the first thing that you do in your early stages of life that puts you against somebody else.
Practice in the mirror and saying the plays, saying the calls, but then not only knowing that, okay, if I get up to the line of scrimmage and they give me an odd front.
However, this is a massive opportunity to learn from a Hall of Fame QB. You're going to a great organization.
It's funny because I feel like I retired and now I'm starting a new career. Like it's a whole new...
You don't want to have those 8 years you're in the league go to waste, right? You built up a big nest egg, right? And just deploying it intelligently. I think we talked about this in the beginning. It's like the power of no.
Yeah. Short-term rental is a very beautiful, like I'm a huge fan of short-term rental. I got lucky when I started. It was interest rates were like 2%.
How do you travel and then also have your three vertically integrated companies all be working when you're not here?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Wealth Juice Podcast, where we discuss all things real estate, personal finance, investing, entrepreneurship, and the many ways to achieve financial independence. We interview accomplished investors and entrepreneurs with the goal that their stories inspire you to take control of your financial future. Here to get your creative juices flowing while also documenting their own personal investing journeys are your hosts, Corey Jacobson and Ryan Bevilacqua.
What is up, Growth House family? It is your host, Jesse Ray. Today we have an amazing podcast. This was recorded at Immersion Season 3, our mastermind, and this mastermind was our 7 to 9 figure mastermind. We brought out our boys, the Wealth Juice, Corey and Ryan. Big shout out to them coming out from Philadelphia, all the way from Philly to Scottsdale, Arizona, where we host these masterminds. And our guest today is Brett Hundley. And you probably heard the name, you know the face. He's an 8-year NFL quarterback. He's a world traveler, real estate investor, broadcaster, has an incredible foundation. This man has many talents, and I actually got connected with him through one of my best friends out here in Arizona, Zach Keeps, aka Big Sexy. And so I asked him, I was like, Zach, you've interviewed so many different people. Big shout out to the Investor Lift podcast because he's a host on that one. And Zach, I asked Zach, I said, man, who's your favorite person you've ever interviewed? And he said, without a question, Brett Hundley. And so I was like, I got to meet this guy. So long story short, a couple months later, I'm having a private dinner, which I host, private dinners every 2 to 3 times a month. And I'm like, Zach, can you bring Brett? I want to connect with him. I want to meet him. He brings him just right off the bat. Energy is amazing. Great dude, just good vibes, and obviously hyper successful. And so we just hit it off. And I remember we were talking about, different countries we've been traveling. And I've just kind of started this whole, digital nomad lifestyle, world traveler. I was all over Europe. I was in Brazil and hit like 12 different countries in the past, 4 months. And so we're having a conversation, me and Brett. And I was like, yeah, I've been to like 12 countries. I've probably been in the most out of anyone at this table. And he's like, yeah, I've been to like 60. And so that's something I always remember, just him, flexing on me with all the countries he's traveled, which I'm just a really big proponent of getting out of your comfort zone, getting out of your environment, go seeing the world, go getting different perspectives on life and have those cool memories and experiences. And so shout out to you, Brett. Appreciate you, man. Great connecting with you. It was cool to see Zach whoop your ass in ping pong. Oh, I said I wasn't going to mention that, so let's cut that from the tape. But anyways, let's get into it. Like I said, we talked everything from his career in the NFL to, his transition into real estate and how he got started to his foundation. And I jump into this podcast probably about the 30-minute mark. So you'll see me hop in, have just a fun dialogue. And again, shout out to the Wealth Juice boys for coming through and running this podcast at Immersion Season 3.
Welcome back to the Wealth Juice Podcast. As always, it's your boys, Ryan and Corey, here with another episode. We are currently out in Arizona, the beautiful Scottsdale, hosting Immersion Season 3 with our boy Jesse Ray and Growth House. Today we have on special guest, Brett Hundley. Dude, we were talking pre-recording. I'm jacked to have you on the show today. Super excited to interview you. We were chopping it up for a while, but thank you for joining us. Stoked to have you here.
Man, I'm happy to be here. I appreciate you guys having me on too. This is awesome.
Yeah, man. This is fun. This is a lot of fun. We've been having we're rolling back to back to back podcasts here. We're really excited, but I was especially excited to interview you just because Ryan and I come from an athlete background, nowhere near to the level that you played the sports, but we love talking to athletes. Like, I feel like it fuels us.
Yes.
And I know you went to high school here in Arizona, UCLA, drafted by the Green Bay Packers. You built your life around football, and it worked.
Yes.
It paid off. Talk to us just about that portion of your life. I know you're big into real estate now, into development, and that was like the version 2.0 of you, right? But like, just talk to us about what it was like growing up, being fiercely competitive, and your drive towards, like, you know, making it to the promised land with the league.
Yeah. And it's funny. I talk about this all the time too, because I feel like I'm living two different lives right now. Because growing up, everything was football. And there wasn't a plan B. There wasn't like, this was my way out. This was the way to provide. And I mean, to go from Chandler High School to UCLA to the league, I'm just now getting into the stage of like looking back and thinking like, damn, like I did all that. Because now I'm like becoming a fan of just watching the game and trying to watch it on Sundays. But my whole life you grow up and you don't realize, I mean, you're in it, you know? And until now, like where I'm out of it, I can like look back and be like, damn, I actually played in the league for 8 years, and now I'm retired and, you know, getting situated into the real estate side of things. But, you know, it's a different beast. Like, I feel like that life was a whole different identity. And now I'm setting out onto the path of sort of who I am outside of football, and for everybody else to know who I am outside of football. Because when they hear Brett Hundley, typically it's like, that's the quarterback. He played and did what he needed to do.
Yeah. I've got a couple here. So it's just so interesting because I think we could navigate this interview so many different ways. We could talk all football, we could talk all real estate. I'm going to do a blend of the two. And I want to just peel it back to you as a person, right? Yeah. I think for you to even see success in football and then bring that to the real estate game, I know that you're going to take it to great heights because you already did that with everything in your life that you've done so far. And I want to take it back to like character traits and things that like take us through like the routine or rituals and things that you did on a daily basis that maybe people didn't see as on your come up. Because I think people see your name in shining lights and they're like, well, he's one of the lucky ones, right?
Yep.
So like, what did you do day in and day out in your life that kind of got you to that point to get ready?
And I think these things that I'm about to touch on, they do translate. So that's the one thing I was able to take away. But growing up, everything was one, routine, and two, you know, you do what you need to do. And in those moments, like there wasn't much partying. There wasn't, I mean, shoot, I don't think I freaking touched alcohol so I was maybe past 20s, you know, like there was a lot of things that I did, even while at UCLA, and people were thinking, oh, you're on the billboards, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're partying. I didn't do none of it. Like it was nothing but routine based. I woke up, I played football, went to school, came back. And that dedication, I feel like got me to where I was at. And I've been able to enjoy life and breathe a little bit, but your identity is taken up by football. And I feel like for me making it out, that was the thing that was all I knew was just football. So it got me to UCLA, and I'm so grateful for where football has taken me, even to real estate. And there's things, again, that I just touched on that do translate, but everything was football. And I feel like just waking up, the dedication, knowing what not to do as well, and not getting myself into those type of positions really, really helped.
So basically saying no to a lot of things.
100%.
And I think the more successful entrepreneurs and investors and just successful businessmen we talk to, they say there's the power in no. And it's so easy to get bogged down and hang around with people that just want to go do things, right? It's so easy to party, man. It's so easy to have a good time, right? But for you to be able to get up every day, stick to the routine, do what you need to do to get to the next level, because I think it's so interesting. There's like talent, and then there's hard work, and then there's a blend of the two. And in the league, you probably saw a mixed bag. There's some guys that don't have to do shit, and there's some guys that they are forcing the routine every day to be able to get to where they got.
Yep, and that's a very good point, because some guys you get to the league and, like, for example, Julius Peppers, greatest athlete I've ever seen in my life. Like, the dude was, I mean, just unbelievable. But you mix somebody like that with hard work, and you obviously Julius Peppers, Hall of Famer, he is who he is. But you also have the guys who have no physical talent, but were the hardest workers every single day. And I would always say I put my work ethic compared to anybody. Like if we're on a treadmill in the Will Smith example, like I'm going to die before I'd let you beat me. That's my mindset. But these guys, there was, and we're talking receivers, we're talking tight ends that have not as much physical ability as you would think to be in the league, but they outworked everybody. That is, I think, the difference of the mindset of like, okay, I might not be the fastest, I might not be the strongest, but I know I can get it done better than you.
It's powerful. I think that's why there's such a correlation between sports and business and sports and success, because it's the first thing that you do in your early stages of life that puts you against somebody else. Yeah. That's like, oh, if I do this better at a higher level, it can translate. And it was for me, I mean, I was like, just a high school basketball player, but the things that it taught me, like I think about the level of competition and how I truly hated losing so much that it forced us to like have that competitive drive in the business world. I want to get into that, but before we get into your transition, because I want to talk about the identity shift, I just want to talk about what it was like to get into the league. You're at a pinnacle, and then you're backing up Aaron Rodgers, right? And like to watch who I think is a top 5 quarterback ever. I love Aaron Rodgers in a lot of ways. I love watching him play today. He's 40 years old. I'm curious, did you learn anything specifically from watching him? You don't have to give away if he was a talent versus hard work guy. I don't really need it, but I see with the product on Sunday. I'm just curious, like, what was it like to back him up and in the early stages of your career?
I think every guy, like Aaron's specific, because I feel like I learned the most from Aaron because I was just drafted. I was ready to learn, and I was with him for 3 years. And those are my first 3 years in the league where I'm a sponge to everything. And I've seen the Aaron Rodgers to the Russell Wilsons to the Kyler Murrays to Lamar Jackson to Carson Wentz. I've seen the best. I've seen Jordy Nelson. I've seen Julius Pepper, Devontae Adams. Like, these are all Hall of Fame guys. And each one has their own thing that they do really, really well, extremely well. Aaron, he works hard, but he's just unrealistically. I mean, this dude's just so smart. Like anything, even trivia. I mean, we would have games on trivia. This dude beat me in ping pong. Like there's things that you would not think he's really good at, but he's just amazing at it. But he's just overly smart. So he might not be the person who needs to stay at the film room till 8 p.m. every night because he already knows it. Where Russell, there wasn't days off. Like if it was Tuesday and a day off, like we're coming in and we're meeting. And Russell's very routine-based every day. Doesn't matter if it's Sunday, doesn't matter if it's Tuesday. And you see it in pregame warmups when he's not even playing, still putting on his helmet, going through a whole game. Like
I noticed that the other day he didn't
100%.
play. He's like out there like tape all that like.
He was suited and
he was
booted.
like he might have been the third. He might have been the third guy, and he's just
Mr. Unlimited. Dude, I just picked him up in fantasy because I'd rather die for that guy. I think he's awesome. He's got his quirks, but that's what makes him who he is. So a couple things for you. One, I'm going to start here, and then I got another one. It's based on the playbook. But can you just take us through, because it's not every day that we get to interview a guy that was in the NFL and made it to like the pinnacle of all sport, right? And to me, dude, you're like a modern day gladiator, dude. You are. It's awesome. You're going up against
just
the best
talking
of the
about
best.
that too. Yeah.
But we'll get into that. So like, just tell me, this is what I really wanted to experience. And it's a selfish question. I'm sure all of our guys listening that fall on Sundays, but it's like that feeling. I don't know if you can even put into words, but the day you were drafted, dude, like what went through your brain knowing all the hard work you had put up to this date? Like, can you even put it into words to express, like, just take us to, the day that it happened and how you're feeling?
It's funny because my draft stories, I'm sure everybody has their own, but mine's interesting.
Not everybody.
Like, 100%. 100%. Yeah. The people who got drafted have their own unique stories. But mine, it was like, I ain't gonna lie, it was bittersweet. I was ecstatic because I got the call and it was a 920 area code. Never talked to Green Bay once. And I got drafted. I'm like, okay, I'm going drafted. I didn't go where I wanted to go, but at the same time, like I was grateful for everything that was coming, the opportunity. And that's all I said I wanted was just the opportunity to get drafted. But I was going to Green Bay. I'm not playing. Like I know I'm going to back up Aaron. So it's like, I'm happy, but also you as an athlete or a high competitor, okay, this is another opportunity to get better at whatever I could have got better at. And I needed to learn a lot once I got drafted, to learn the NFL system, the playbooks, which are completely different from college to the NFL, at least when I was coming in. Now it's gotten a lot better, but I knew I wasn't going to play right away. So my thought changed from, okay, instead of thinking I'm going to play and have an opportunity, I need to go into this thinking I'm going to learn and take as much as I can from Aaron before I leave.
Yep. So I love that. And it's funny because you see a lot of times they try to get the media on TV and get everybody's reaction when they get drafted. And it is bittersweet, right? You're going and you're like, okay, I'm not starting.
Yep.
However, this is a massive opportunity to learn from a Hall of Fame QB. You're going to a great organization. I mean, like, there's so much history there.
Man.
Like, come on. And so, but you mentioned the playbook, and this is so interesting. Like, when I think of QBs, man, like there's a lot to the game, but as you elevate to the league, I think obviously the playbook changes. We can get into that, but like the battle lies not only with your body, but it's between your ears. And you guys are so incredibly intelligent to be able to audible at the line, to change things up. Dude, there's so much that goes into it. And unless you know a football player or someone that's reached this caliber to have these conversations, you'd have no idea. So can you peel back a little bit of the layer of like what people don't understand when you line up at the line of scrimmage, what you have to deal with on like reading defenses, and how does it even potentially like what you have to study?
Layman's terms.
And I'll
Dumb
try
it down for us.
I'll try to, because I think it is fascinating, especially being out of it now, because I look back and I'm like, man, like that was my normal, was doing the checks, making calls. That was normal to me, but that was my life. And so now being out of it and like experiencing what I call the real world outside of football, completely different. But like that is a whole different beast, because you're not only, when I first got to Green Bay, I mean, I came from the spread offense in high school and in college. When I got to Green Bay, it's pro style. So that playbook went from like this to very easy terminology, maybe 4 words to, and I'm not joking, like this. And we're talking just straight paper. And the thing that makes it so hard in the pro style is if you come up to the line of scrimmage, and now the play calls are not 4 words, they're like 12 words. And then they have a check versus a certain look. So you got a whole another 12-word play coming right after it, and you have to know and spit it out just like that. So I practice in the mirror and saying the plays, saying the calls, but then not only knowing that, okay, if I get up to the line of scrimmage and they give me an odd front, I need to know the check on page 42 of 1,060 page playbook, and I need to know what to get to. And so as a quarterback, I always say, and everybody, would think it, but you have to know everything. And not only just my position, not only just what the offense is doing, but I also have to know what the defense is doing. And because of that, like, you have a wider sense of things, but you can also, it's almost like freeing almost, because if you're prepared, you feel confident going up. But if you're not, you get hurt real quick.
Yeah, that's where that's exactly right. That's where the confidence comes from. And it's funny, I don't know football anywhere near the level that you do, but I've seen it happen where I can watch, like, I know that the quarterback knows that the receiver ran the wrong route and the quarterback throws an interception, but he's trying to be a leader while being like, that guy should have run it in, and he clearly didn't. And it's like, it just, for the quarterback to have to know that that wasn't the correct route, it's just an interesting dynamic. You have a lot of power, right? And also you have to hold that with a lot of weight and responsibility. So
it's just so interesting to me, like, having these types of conversations, because you don't see even anything close to what you guys go through on TV. Like, you're just seeing the back and forth. Oh, he threw a pick. Oh, he threw a touchdown. Nice start. Like, there's so much that goes on thinking wise and reading and changing and audibling and just actually making the right decision on the fly. So that's why they call you guys the field generals. Like, you do command the ship on both sides of the ball, truly. Yes. And so I think football is so interesting because it parlays into business and into like most, I don't know, higher level tasks, if you will. And so I really think about this as like, as you're navigating the game, you're not thinking with just your brain. You have to motivate the guys around you emotionally too. So you're playing around with like emotions, your logic at the same time. So like in the huddle, like, you don't want to say the weird stuff.
But think of this. Like, imagine you got 100,000 people screaming at you. You're an opposing team. You have a minute left to win the game, and you have to go into the huddle like it's a random Tuesday practice that we're like, all right, you guys ready to rock? All right, let's go. Like, it can't phase you. I mean, that's the difference of like the pressure there versus, like, it's different and it's hard to describe.
In those moments, do you just mentioned it very even keel, you have to pretend it's a Tuesday. Maybe you already answered the question, but do you guys realize the gravity in these moments? Call it a 2-minute drill. You're down. Maybe let's just throw it back to like a Super Bowl and someone decides to throw a pass instead of a run. We won't go there. But I'm saying, like, in that moment, do you realize the weight? Or are you just like, oh, nope, on to the next play. We just got to get it done.
I think that is for myself. I was like, I used to, I think the mental part of it, especially as a quarterback, is such a big thing that not many people, and I think for every position in football, but in life, the mental side of things is I used to have a big problem that when something good happened, I had bad self-talk, thinking like something bad was going to come. So I had to, every time I walked on the field to take the offense, like I was saying positive self-talk, affirmations to myself to get myself locked into thinking good thoughts if I just scored like it was the weirdest thing. And until I actually, figured out my identity outside of football and changed certain things, that's when, honestly, football became a lot easier for me. And I played 1,000% better because of it, and freer, I guess I would say.
That is really interesting. I would think it would be the opposite,
100%.
right? Like you would throw a pick and be like, this is about to spiral, but you're kind of like playing the laws of averages. Like if I play well, the next thing to come could be playing negative. So that's really cool insight just to hear it, from somebody who's played at a high level. I want to transition a little bit into the real estate stuff, but more so like we talked to your friend Devin Kennard about this, and he was sharing how like, not everyone, I'll just throw like, Daniel Jones signed it. He signed a $30 million a year contract. Like that is, and I'm not suggesting he's one of the best players in the league. I'm just suggesting that he's good.
Yes.
Like you're good. You could put that in the stock market, whatever, at post league, you're fine.
Yes.
You're not now, but there's a lot of dudes who played 7 years and made $8 million that is also a lot of money, right? Yeah. But you can blow through it if you're not smart. So absolutely. I'm curious about, for someone who made a lot of money, but not an insane amount of money, to take the knowledge from when you're like, maybe your career is kind of like, I got a couple years left. Yeah. How did you know, or when did you make a pivot in your brain, or who did you learn from to say, okay, I got to make this last, or what's the next phase for me? Like, how did you figure it out?
I feel like everybody's story is different. Mine started actually when I was playing in Green Bay, and Aaron went down, and I went in and played, I think, 9 games, and did not have, and think about it, I've been playing Chandler High School, UCLA, I've only succeeded everywhere I went. When I got to Green Bay and I got that opportunity, and that's what I was waiting for. I knew I wasn't going to play right away, but my second year in Green Bay, Aaron goes down, breaks his collarbone. I'm in. I get 9 games to play with not thinking, Aaron's going to come back or whatever. I didn't perform the way I wanted to or what I'm used to. So that was a huge thing where my identity was tied to my performance. And then from there, I had to figure out my identity outside of myself. So I started back then, where I feel like a lot of players start once they get released. And then and we can get into this as we're talking about identity and stuff like that. But when I got to Arizona, that was the first time I actually got released. So I was traded from Green Bay to Seattle, so never released. And that was different, But then when I got picked up by Arizona and then released, my brain was like, this isn't going to last forever. I think I was on year 5 at the time. And I'd already beat the averages. Most players are 2.8, 2.7. Not for long. Yeah, not at all. And I knew I had to do something. So then you're sort of sitting there like, okay, well, what do I want to get into? Where am I at? And that's when actually Devin Kennard, me and him were playing on the Cardinals at the time, and Prince Amukamara, who's also from here as well. And Devin was doing.
Told us about the story about the GM, by the way.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah. So we don't have to get into it now. About
100%,
crazy. Go ahead.
100%. And so I just started figuring out. Larry Fitzgerald was a huge help, but I started asking guys like, what are you doing outside of football? Like I was trying to figure out what to do with my money. I sort of just hoarded it, and didn't know what to do with it. And then Prince and Devin Kennard were telling me about real estate. Prince was doing short-term rentals, and we talked every single day. After practice, we would talk. I would ask them questions, break down numbers, deals, and that's how I started learning every day after practice with them. That's when I first bought my property right near Prince's, and then now we're here. It's like that. Those simple things turn into my life after post-football.
Do you think that, I'm asking this question to know, was it easier to perform on the football field for you, or now that you have experience in real estate, like, to me, it would feel like there's so much more pressure in real estate. Pressure in football.
Yeah. What are you saying, buddy?
Sorry. I mean, just because I know, because I played it.
We haven't played the other.
There's so much more pressure in football that maybe that real estate was like, okay, like this isn't like I'm not gonna break my leg, right? I'm not gonna like injure myself. I do have some money. Like, was it less pressure, or did you feel the opposite? I'm just curious.
No, it for sure was less pressure. Yeah. Football. And that's another thing too. Like when I retired, I was done, because you don't like going to the grocery store. Like you're always on. Like there's somebody always watching. and it becomes a lot after a while, especially if your whole life is like that. When I retired, that pressure stayed there, you know? And then from now, this doing real estate, it's still like, I still have pressure to perform. Like my brain continues,
Trained
like the mindset, all that. That's why I said there's a lot of things that I've now realized that translate into what I'm doing now. But that drive is still there. Now, the pressure, though, I will say I love not getting hit. I love doing yoga in the morning. I love stretching. There's a lot of things that are so much better outside of football.
The simple things in life.
The simple things in life, which you don't get to enjoy when you're playing football.
Well, before you go, I'll let you go. How old are you?
31.
31. So most people, when they're 31, they're starting their career.
Yeah.
You're like living a double life. Like you ending a career, and it's a high paying career, but with that comes a lot of risk and reward. Now you've started the phase of real estate. You've well into it. I'm curious about like the first couple moves you made. I know that you mentioned you bought a place.
Yeah.
How did you find your lane within real estate? Because there's so many avenues to go. And like, how did you, it sounds like I understand how you figured out it was a good idea, but how did you know which direction to take?
No, and it's funny because I always like when I was playing in the NFL at the end, like my nickname was like Gramps when I was with Baltimore, but I'm 30 years old. It's not for long. I'm telling you, when you played 8 years, everybody else looks at you like, man, you've been here for a while. And, you know, but it's funny because I feel like I retired and now I'm starting a new career. Like it's a whole new,
you are
100%. And I feel like I'm not a new person, but like who I am, my identity, everything is completely new. So in a sense, like I'm not where I was in the NFL, where I am in real estate. You know, I feel like I'm still getting going and I'm still learning and I have a lot to learn. Now I've done enough to have enough understanding with some things, but the way I got into real estate, I bought my place when I was in Green Bay. I bought a house, and that's how it sort of clicked because once I'd left, I had finished the basement, and this is when I was starting too. Me and the GC I met out there, we would it was just to get my mind off, we would go in the basement and like build it out together. That was just like my way to like relax. We just built out the basement. Then when I sold the property and left Green Bay, made some money, and I was like, wow, okay, this is pretty nice. But no, again, nobody even teaches you. And I felt like there was a passion for it. And that's my biggest thing where like, you know, I'm in a different space because I get to retire, and I was able to keep enough that I didn't necessarily need to go out and find a 9-to-5. And I was like, okay, let me figure out what I can do to travel, the freedom. That was my biggest thing. I still wanted freedom. And real estate, I would say fell into it, but I developed a passion for it as well. And in that passion, things kept growing. And then I bought one property, bought another property, bought a third one, started a management company where I was, after practice, I started hiring teams out here. But this is while I'm playing in Indianapolis at the tail end of my career. So after practice every day, everybody else is, you know, doing stuff. I'm back at home on my computer with the teams, like meeting with people, talking about what we can do to improve. And the next thing you know, it gets into developments, build a new property, and then we sort of are here today. You know?
It's so cool, man. Like you really hedged your bet in a way too.
100%.
I just love this, man. Just the picture you painted there of like everybody going out and partying, not really partying, but like maybe going back to their families and stuff, and they're off work. You're like, dude, I got a second life here. Like as soon as this is over, I'm not done. I'm not retired. The word retired gets thrown around a lot. Like you retired from the NFL.
Yes.
You didn't retire from life. Yeah. Like you're so
31.
young, dude. You're 31. Like you're a kid in a way, you know? And so I think it's amazing. There's so many different ways I want to like talk about this because everything plays into each other. Okay, sir.
This is not a sponsor, right?
Oh, shit.
Move that one. I'm going to jump in here.
The host of the evening has arrived.
So you mentioned something about Plan B, and I got you a shirt. Like there is no Plan B, so I want you to see the quote on the back.
Let's check it out.
Want me to read it for you? Plan B.
Do Plan A better. I like that, man.
That?
I love that. Actually, I appreciate that. I got you. And that's real though.
That's real.
That's
real.
That's all you got?
Tell me what that means to you.
Oh man. I mean, when I was growing up, that meant Plan A is all I got. Football is all I got, and I didn't have a Plan B. So that is, I think, that was what it meant to me. Like that's all I got. It's football.
Do you think it's important? Because I think a lot of people, if they kind of have this burn the boats mentality. If you don't, then it's like, all right, I got this other backup plan, so I'm not gonna go all in. Yeah. For you now, is that kind of like your thing? Like I'm all in real estate. I don't have a Plan B.
Now I like to diversify a little bit. I feel like when I was just starting and trying to figure out my way in life, football was all I knew and I was good at it. So I was like, all right, cool, I'm gonna go all in on this. Now I'm for sure all in on real estate, but I also can't risk losing what I already built. So that's why I'm all about now diversity. Like I have stocks, I have, properties, I have companies. Now I'm trying to actually diversify my portfolio enough to where I don't have to feel like I need this to survive and do what I'm doing.
It's wealth preservation
100%.
as well as growth. And it's an interesting game. Like you don't want to have those 8 years you're in the league go to waste, right? That you built up a big nest egg, right? And just deploying it intelligently. I think we talked about this in the beginning. It's like the power of no.
Yeah.
And like now there's a lot of people that they know who you are. Now they know you're in the real estate game. Like you're recognizable. They're like, hey, what are you getting into? Oh, someone wants to be your buddy all of a sudden, right? And so it's like you got to really like protect your circle and protect the people you're around, which is just another whole conversation we can get to. But one of the things I wanted to talk about is Corey and I asked you this pre-recording, so I'm just going to bring it in here. Is like I see you guys, young kids, getting drafted, right? And you're going through, and when I say young kids, like mentally, you're not young kids. You guys are going through incredible changes in your life. We talked about the mental game and the battle that you have to deal with on the field, but now you're getting handed a big check of money. We don't have to talk about exactly what it is, but some guys, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, and they're just like, good luck. So I talked to this about you. I've always heard this thing like, hey, if you're out drinking, partying, there's always that person you got on speed dial from the organization that'll come pick you up, right? Yep. I'm like, all right, well, do you have a financial advisor on speed dial? Like, do organizations provide anything to give you a guiding light? Can you shed as much light as you can on that subject?
Yeah, I think organizations do a much better job now. When I first came into the league, a lot different than where it is now. And I feel like that's the growth of the NFL and these issues that have, happened. There's a great, and I tell this to everybody, there's a great documentary called ESPN 30 for 30 Broke. And it documents athletes and their journeys about how most athletes, I want to say like 90% plus, are bankrupt after 3 years. So even that alone, like that scared the shit out of me. I was like, all right, I don't want to be making this money and then go back to where I came from and say, okay, I have nothing to show for it. But at the same time, I went through all the struggles of figuring out like, okay, how do I manage? Like my family doesn't come from money. I was broke growing up. When I got my first check, I realized taxes are real. They don't teach you that either. Like when I saw as much, like I think I got like $700,000, $800,000 first check. And half of it was gone, and it all went to taxes. And I was like, man, this is some bullshit.
It's bullshit.
Yeah. But nobody teaches you. Like,
That's why you got to buy real estate.
Yeah, 100%. Nobody teaches you all this stuff. And so going along my journey, and like luckily I was grateful and blessed enough to make the mistakes, but also to continue playing football to where I was able to learn enough. By the time I got out of football, I learned what I needed to do.
We also heard that your first purchase was a ping pong table.
It was,
yeah.
yes.
So
yes.
it was not
Burberry
like
coat. You had a little flash in there.
No, okay. Yeah, Burberry coat, and which was like $300 or $400, I think, and a ping pong table.
Okay,
that's all I had, man.
Could have been a lot worse.
But I thought I was bald. Like I thought that was like my I never had nothing growing up.
Yeah, that's great. But as we wind down, I want to talk a little bit about the strategy that you like get into in real estate because I think. You seem, and I've only known you for 29 minutes, right? But you seem
it's a solid 29 minutes, by the way.
It's been a great 29 minutes. It seems like you're meticulous, like you're a routine person. Yeah. I imagine that the real estate venture that you're on is it's thought out and really well planned. And I know you have management, development. Like, what are you doing specifically in the real estate? And I think there's a lot of people that maybe latch on, maybe you get into who knows what comes next from it, just like getting your name out there in the real estate world and being Brett Hundley, the real estate guy. So what do you do specifically? If you could just shed some light on it.
Absolutely. I got into managing properties, and it started when I was playing away in Indianapolis. I needed management, and then a lot of players needed management, and we were all sort of in the same boat. Like, okay, who can we trust? One, and then two, what we want to, the management services. We need a hands-off approach. So then I was like, okay, well, hey, you needed Prince, all these guys, and I was like, all right, I'll start something, and I'll figure it out. I started hiring people, learning, and I just started researching everything I could and learning. And now that's how we build a full-time, long-term, and short-term. We specialize with short-term. We also manage long-term. But then I got into developments as well, so we're sort of able to handle a little bit of everything. And that's how I've been trying to grow everything with the real estate side, is doing flips, doing new builds, using that liquidity to buy more long terms or short, whatever it is.
Are your short terms out here in Arizona?
Everything, yeah.
Okay.
Everything, all properties, all businesses, everything is here.
We love short-term rentals. We have a part owner in a bunch, and then I have one in Tampa. I think I like building an experience for somebody.
Yes.
We're in a short-term rental right now, right? And we're
Beautiful one.
hosting an amazing event, and I think the collaboration, what comes through that, makes it fun. Do you find the same way, like the creativity behind it?
100%. I think that I will say this: short-term rental is a very beautiful. Like, I'm a huge fan of short-term rental. I got lucky when I started; it was interest rates were like 2%, and I got all my properties right around there. So I was blessed. But it is fun being able to design a property and build around an experience, because that's what this. I mean, this property. I mean, it's beautiful, man. And so to be able to have that, and it's a lot more traction. It's a lot more upkeep than the typical long term. But I've grown to really, really love short term.
Love it. What I want to say is it's just so interesting how your, not only your career, but just your second career now, like the version 2.0 of you has evolved. And it seems like it's all fallen back onto a relationship, one that started with DK, Devin Kennard, as you're playing in Arizona. Yep. And like, we talk a lot about the power of relationships and building your networking. Yeah. Can you talk to how your network and relationships have impacted your career, maybe in NFL career and then also in your real estate career?
Absolutely. Networking is one thing I wasn't fully aware of it. And everybody said, when you're in the NFL, use it to the best of your ability, because you're going to be able to get into way more doors than you can when you're out. I'm just realizing the power of networking. I understand, like, it's got me to a lot of places, the doors I've been able to get into. But when you think back, and I think back, like, the random conversations where I'm talking to Prince McMahon and Devin Kennard, like, hey, what are you guys doing with your money? I was just blessed enough to be in that opportunity and in that room to talk to these guys, and they started teaching me about real estate and helped me out and learning, and that's how I got into real estate. And now I think about everybody else I run into contact with. You guys, met you a couple days ago, and look at, I'm here now. It's like those opportunities. I love just being a sponge, and truly, like, I understand the quote more and more now, like, it's all about who you know. So that's a huge thing. And honestly, I'm more about like the genuine relationships, because I think a lot of people just use the word network, but I'm all about, like, when I ask you how you're doing, like, I'm actually curious, like, not just the surface level stuff, like genuine relationships. And I think if my goal is just to continue building genuine relationships with people, and then from there, everything takes care of itself.
Brett, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because the word networking almost bothers me, because it's not, I'll tell you what it's not, going to a seminar and handing out business cards and saying I'm networking. That is not networking. Networking, what it is, and we've done this, we try to do this more and more. I hear that somebody's child is a fan of the 76ers. Yep. I call somebody that I know that works for the 76ers. We send them a jersey. Like, that is how to get in front of somebody and show that you actually care. Yep. Or are you actually listening to what they're saying? Yes. And not, what's up, how you doing? Like, networking has become, we talk about it on almost every podcast, and I just don't want to throw the word out there, because, like, people that are listening, like, it's just like, you don't want to be surface level, or it's like anti-networking in a way. So that's kind of just
to make it sound
better than
I guess I'll say sexier, but it's not really, like, we talk about capital all the time and money, right? And everybody seems to put this high value on the dollar, right? Because that's how the world, quite frankly, that's how it runs. Yeah. There's another thing that we've maybe we talked about with Jesse or someone else, but it's relationship capital, right? Yeah, there's so 100%. Much in your genuine relationships. The whole reason we're here at Immersion is, we shared the story multiple times, but we met Jesse through him listening to our podcast, DMing us on Instagram. Didn't realize we impacted him at all. He shared his story with us, how he left his W-2 job, told us that we made an impact on his life. We're like, holy crap. This is, I can't believe we're actually, like, making an impact. You just thought you had the social media, thought you had the brand, and, like, some people see things. You don't know what, like, our Instagram got up to 30,000 followers, and we're like, this is amazing, but it seems like a number, dude. You don't realize the real people and the stories you're impacting. And then Jesse calls us up. He tells us about Immersion. He's like, listen, guys, I'd really like to have you out to this event. It's got 7-8 figure entrepreneurs, but really, I'd like to just have good people in the room. And I'd love to have you guys in here. We've become friends over the years. Haven't officially met in person. We're like, dude, if you're in, we're in. Like this, if you're 100%. Running it, I'm in. And we showed up, and, like, dude, we've known you for 30 minutes. I feel like I've known you forever. And it's like just talking, like, it's not talking about football, dude. It's talking about Brett Hundley. Like, how are you doing?
Yeah.
How's your career evolved? Like, who is the person under the helmet? And like, now the second version of you, these conversations don't happen often. Yes. And it's hard to find genuine people that actually give a shit to talk to you as men that are trying to get to the next level of their lives, no matter what level you've been in before. So I think it's just healthy. I want to thank Jesse sitting here with us. So this conversation would not be possible without you, brother. We are thrilled and honored to be here. And thanks for putting the show together.
Appreciate you guys being here, man. This is incredible. What I want to ask you, because you were a big traveler.
Huge.
You beat me on the country. So I thought I was going to flex on you the other night. I'm like, yeah, I've been to 20. And you're like, I've been to 60.
Yeah. Damn, how many countries are there?
I don't
feel
know.
like you crushed a lot, dude. That's good.
So I want to ask you, I think we actually talked about this on the phone one time, but how do you travel and then also have your 3 vertically integrated companies all be working when you're not here?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the relationships and like when I work with people, when I have people working in the companies and stuff, these are true relationships I have that I can trust the work ethic that they've done. Because when I retired, I was in Arizona for, let's say, a year and a half or 2. I was with them every single day to build, and I'm huge on culture. So I think if you build the right team with the right culture, everything takes care of itself. So when I originally started the companies, I had to start them while in Indianapolis, while, playing football, where after practice I would get on and Zoom and we'd talk and make sure things get done, to where I retired and then got to Arizona and spent a year and a half building out the systems, the operations, the people, understanding, okay, I can trust you to do this. And that has allowed me, I think I focus a lot on people, the culture of things, huge on it. And I feel like everybody I work with, I can trust 1,000%, where if I know, hey, I'm not here to micromanage you. I know you're going to get your work done. That's what we're all for.
Yeah, that's speaking the language of coming from team sports, right?
100%.
So I'm curious about, what habit do you think that you've either carried over from your football career or just in general, what habit would you recommend that an entrepreneur, a budding entrepreneur, picks up that you think has benefited you in your journey?
Man, great question. I'll tell a story on this one, because it's something that I was transitioning, starting my retirement when I retired from Baltimore, and I was out. It was a captain in the Navy, and I was telling him I was retiring and trying to figure things out, and what works, what I'm doing now to post life. And he looked at me straight in the face and he was like, honestly, you'll realize, being outside of football, that as long as you work every single day and you show up, you'll beat 99% of people. Stuck with me forever. And I feel like, okay, well, that's the one thing that helped me in my transition, was my work ethic and my routine, I think, is the biggest thing. I'm not, I can tell you where I'm going to be at next Tuesday, or, my schedule is very on point, and my routine is very consistent. And I think that's the thing that's helped me, getting into real estate, leaving football and figuring out like what's next. And I didn't know, it's not to say I knew everything that all these, a lot of these real estate guys, maybe who's been in the real estate for 20 plus years, but my mentality is like, okay, I might not know as much as you now, but give me a month, give me 2 months. Like I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna go to school. I'm gonna learn every day. I'm gonna learn something. I'm gonna get better.
Yeah, man. I think this really plays to your story and who you are. And I've only known this, did a little bit of research on you. I think I heard you say this before, but you attributed a little bit back to the days with your dad coming up in the game. And you mentioned going on runs with your dad. And originally you're riding a scooter next to him. He's running down the street, right? You couldn't keep up. Get a little bit older, you get the mile in. Then you finally get 2 miles. Then you get 3. And then you're beating your dad in the race.
Yep.
And you just kept at it. And like you took that to the NFL, right? And then you mastered that craft. Yep. Now you're on to the next thing. It's like analyzing deals. When people leave practice, you're hunkering down on the laptop. Yep. You're building out teams, dude. Like you're just doing the right things over and over consistently. And if you just don't stop, you're going to succeed. And then you understand the power of being a good person too. Yeah. It's like I can just do 30 minutes, however we're at now. It's like I just can tell a good person when I meet one, and I know who's BS and who's not. And like just to come in open arms and talk about all these things after. A lot of people would see someone in the NFL and they might be like, man, this guy's reached this level of success. Why is he talking to me? Yeah. Like, and maybe you have a chip on your shoulder. You think you're better than someone else. And I'm not saying just NFL guy, just like, dude, you've mastered a craft, right? It could be a business owner that's made millions. I don't care who you are. You come in open arms. You came right up to us. And I just say this is for people that weren't here walking in the room. It's like, hey, how you doing today? My name's Brett. Nice to meet you. I'm like,
Yes.
dude, this guy's real. Like, I love him. Like, I was like just ready, fired up for the interview, dude.
Yeah, same, man.
So I appreciate it. I think you were raised right. You've taken all of your things throughout your life and you've mastered your crafts. And I'm just so excited to see what you do. I want to touch on it. We didn't mention the name of your business, but Streams.
Streams, yeah.
And Corey kind of mentioned like you have things to do and you're growing it in certain ways. Do you have an end goal or like the next 5 to 10 year plan, or you kind of just letting things come as they go?
I mean, my end goal would be one day to hopefully run a big time organization and grow it into something. And then for me, my end goal is just the freedom. I think I have enough now, but I also wake up with a drive every day. So like, I want to do so. I want to build. I want to learn. And so I always think of like a number, and I'm like, man, maybe 100 million, maybe 50 million, 10 million. But I always said like, okay, when I was growing up broke, like, let me just get $1 million. When I got it, my drive didn't change. Like, it was like, okay, what's the next thing I can do? And how can I make this money work? You know? And so for me, I don't know. I guess it's just when the time comes, I feel like I'll know, you know?
I got one last one for you and I'll let you go. It parlays to this. It's funny because some people think it's always a number, right? And like, it's funny. That's the first thing people go to. They're like, maybe 50 mil, 100 mil. I don't know. Like, when you're dead and gone, what is one thing that you want people to remember about Brett Hundley?
I would say the energy, man. Like I said, I'm all about like true relationships. I'm not here for the surface level stuff. Like, if I get to know you, like, I want to know you. And I want to do work with good people. So I think that's the biggest thing. I'm all about culture and just energy, man. You have fun, you be who you are, and everything else follows suit.
All right, Brett. Well, you can't get away from us now.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
It's good though.
I mean, you're talking about energy, and we shared this story before, but I asked Zach Keeps, who's like, big time player out here, one of my good friends from Arizona. I'm like, Zach, you've interviewed so many people on the podcast, 11 out of 10, shout out the Investor Lift podcast. And I'm like, who should I get to know? Who is your favorite guest? He goes, man, Brett. I'm like, who's Brett? Brett Hundley. I'm like, okay, I want to meet him. And then I met him for the first time. I'm like, Zach, I see why. This is my guy right here. You came in with great energy. We hit it off. And man, I appreciate you being here. And also what I want to touch on is we talked about the people here, super successful, part of Immersion, but they're doing good things. And so I want you to talk about your foundation.
Oh, man.
Like, tell me about that.
Absolutely. That's my passion project. And that is like I work but the foundation is like the piece that brings me the most fulfilling part of what I'm doing right now. My sister has epilepsy, was diagnosed when we were about 10. And growing up, figuring out there wasn't a huge community of epilepsy. I mean, people didn't know what a seizure was, breaking out, and like people didn't know nothing about it. And so to watch her battle through there, she was a track runner. I had to stop, dislocated her shoulders over 100 times on both. Like I've seen a lot. My sister, and she's one of the most strongest women I've seen. But when I was playing in Green Bay, we had the opportunity to say, okay, hey, let's start our own foundation and let's give back to the people that our community in Arizona, And we were blessed enough to start. And Rick Harrison, actually, the Pawn Stars, he has epilepsy too. Many people don't realize that. He had it when he was young. And he joined up with us too. And, from there, things just started growing. And our mission statement, we kept it broad to help children and families in need. But we got our base started in epilepsy. And so we do a multitude of things, though. We have a first-time fathers program with Eisner Health in California for first-time fathers, like 12 weeks. Completely free to them. They can go and learn everything from, father-daughter relationships to, proper, normal, healthy ways to raise a family. We have give backs, toy drives, Secret Santa coming up, which is where, the community will put out applications, people will apply, and then we'll go around and just pass out as many gifts as we can. So the foundation to me is like a piece that, outside of all the business and work and stuff, it's what's my calling. It's where I feel most alive, I guess.
Well, Brett, if that isn't good energy, I don't know what is.
Man.
So we appreciate you bringing that up. Last question for me. Let's say you could go back to your 18-year-old self and you could have a conversation with him. Maybe you just graduated high school, you're about to embark on your UCLA journey. Knowing what you know now, what would you tell your 18-year-old self?
I would for sure tell myself, don't get down, just keep going. I think in my life, I mean, just like everybody, there's ups and downs. I was blessed to play at UCLA, but there was some deep times in that as well. So not everything's always the high, and not everything's always the easiest. And I think if I would have stopped or if I would have given up, I wouldn't be sitting here today. And so I'm grateful. If I could talk to my 18-year-old self right now, I would just say, keep going. No matter how hard or dark things look, keep moving.
Yeah, it's gonna work out. It
Yeah.
clearly did, man.
Absolutely.
I love it. We get to these semi-emotional questions, and so like I'll stop looking you in the eye just in case. Just in case I got tripped up last time. Last question from me, and it might play into the foundation a bit, but maybe there's more to it too. We like to ask this kind of to cap the show. Like, what keeps you driving to do what you do on a daily basis? So everybody has their chip or their why, like the juice that keeps you going. So what's yours? If it plays in the foundation, that's amazing too. But just think about like intrinsically kind of what takes you to the next level.
One thing I learned is I love competition. I think that's the thing about me that wakes me up.
That.
I'm telling you, man.
He's fired up. Look at this
like
energy.
I love competition, and even speaking football. Like later in my career, I learned I love football, but I loved competing more. That's why when I was playing backup, I didn't have that much fun playing football. I still love competing, playing, but I want to play. And so every day when I wake up, stuff like this is huge for me because I get to be around people who are 20 years ahead, who are way bigger companies, way bigger things. And I look at those guys, and I'm trying to learn. That's why, we talked about the story with Zach. And when I first met him, I mean, I came with a list of questions. Like, I need to pull as much information from you as I can, but it's because I see in him like what I want to get to. And I might have just retired from football, but I have a whole new passion of like, okay, this is a whole new game that I get to find people who not only, are great individuals, but I look up to in some way or fashion, and that I can go out and now try to get to their level.
Wow, I love it, man. It's just like podcasts like this just remind me, like we've done, this is like 250 something. We've done a lot of these things, man. It's been a lot, and it's so interesting. It's hard to do, but we try to take like one piece of information or some motivation from every episode and just like synthesize it and bring it to our audience. And it's so hard, man, because you give us like nugget after nugget after nugget. So I just want to thank you for being here, man. It was a pleasure to meet you. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you this weekend. It's great. Selfishly, it's great for all the boys here. But Jesse, thanks for putting this on. Another great episode. Emergent Season 3. We're back. We're excited. Thanks for joining us.
Last thing, man. Someone's going to be here in a little bit. Speaking of competition,
Zach?
He's also named as Big Sexy. And he says he's going to whoop your ass in ping pong. So who won, actually, this last ping pong game?
Look I hate losing more than I like winning. Okay. And Zach might have beat me by a couple scores. Maybe.
We weren't here, so I can't vouch.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. And
Rematch,
nobody knows.
Rematch tonight.
I've been I was in Norway on the ping pong table sending pictures of Zach. Like I want a rematch. Like
wow.
and
in Norway.
But he's been running from me.
I'm picturing like a little Christmas cottage. You're just slashing it up, dude.
I was with my wife. Is like, what are you doing? I'm like, man, I lost. Like, I need this rematch. Like I need it. So tell Zach I'm ready.
All right, we'll see.
Cool, man. All right, guys. Well, thanks again for joining us. Season 3, back at it. Take us out.
Thanks for tuning in this week to the Wealth Juice Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share with friends. The more ratings we get, the more ears we'll get on our show, and in turn, we'll be able to provide you with more high-quality guests. You can also find us on Instagram and YouTube at Wealth Juice Official, where we post daily tips, tricks, and document our own journey towards financial freedom.